Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Sir Evans. Sir is a speaker, coach, and founder of Quality Service. His story is one of resilience. After losing 500 pounds and enduring the loss of both parents and 2 siblings, he chose to rebuild his life with faith, discipline, and purpose. He's the creator of the Superpower Planner, and his TEDx talk challenged audiences to see creativity as fuel for transformation. Sir Evans is living proof that adversity can become positive momentum. Sir Evans, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Lumi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You've been through some profound personal challenges. Looking back, what's helped you begin to move forward when life felt the heaviest?
Oh boy. I would say probably one of the key ingredients that has helped me to move forward is to realize that I've been here before. And when I say that, there was a certain period in time when I didn't realize that I was using the same strength to continue to overcome these obstacles. So each time we would face adversity, we're like, what are we going to do now? How are we going to do this now? And I think that was one of the key contributors, realizing that, hey, you already got the stuff that you're needing to navigate this.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting as we look back on our past experiences, and each one of us has already made it through some of our most difficult moments.
Yeah.
And we don't take the time to actually acknowledge that or recognize that. So what are some tips that you could give some people to help them recognize just where they are now compared to where they've been?
Sure. I would say one of the biggest things is being intentional. And I was listening to one of your earlier episodes about writing things down. Right. And I'm such a fan of writing things down. Oh, absolutely. Of course. I'm such a fan of writing things down because every time an elder dies, a library burns to the ground. Right. So if we don't get that stuff out of our head, it's going nowhere. So being intentional about the moments, being intentional with the time, and being able to actually slow down enough so that you can capture some of those thoughts. One of the questions I always ask my clients is, what's the first thing that you did when you woke up this morning? And I always get a buttload of answers. I sent a text message. I rolled over. I hit my snooze on my alarm clock. I even think I got a smart one. Oh, this is a bit of one. I took a breath, right? I took a breath. And I had to stop and I say, now all of the rest of those, except for taking a breath, because you did that involuntarily, you made a decision. You made a choice. And oftentimes we lose sight of the power that we have in our choices, because someone didn't get to wake up this morning. Someone didn't get to hit the snooze on their alarm. Someone didn't get to wake up and brush their teeth. But somebody might even have some issues or problems. Being able to do that, being able to take advantage of those small victories and recognizing them is critical.
I'm glad that you mentioned what's the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning. After listening to Joe Dispenza so many times, you hear just how many thoughts that we have throughout a given day, somewhere around 50,000. The number keeps changing, and that becomes a little irrelevant. But what you begin to recognize is that every day you're waking up and you're living the same day, the same experiences, the same challenges, the same frustrations, irritation, sadness, loneliness, depression, anger, all of the things all at once. And we don't wake up with intention. And so for myself, I got to this place where I didn't want to live in the past anymore. And I was tired of having the same experiences. And I recognized that it was tied to the way that I was waking up in the morning and how I was starting my day. You hit that snooze button, you check your phone, you start scrolling, and you automatically put yourself into the same thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you had yesterday. So you're living the same day over and over again. It becomes Groundhog Day.
Absolutely.
And then I got to this place where I shifted and I started saying, dear God, show me how amazing today can be. And it's not this place of give me, it's give me the eyes to see and the ears to hear just how beautiful and amazing and how much gratitude I can have in the moment for the things that I have right now. It may not be where I want to be, but to have that gratitude in the moment, I think is so important.
Absolutely. And I think it's good what you're saying. You ask God, right, for requests. And I've had to be very mindful about what it is specifically that I'm asking God for. Because there once upon a time.
Because you get it.
You won't get it. You won't get it. And once upon a time, I would ask, why am I here? Do I have to be in this situation? What is the point of this? But being more specific about what is it that you want me to get out of this season? Right? Because clearly we're here. We have arrived at, whether this is a sunny day, whether it's hell on wheels, whether it's a rainstorm, we have arrived. And I'm always a firm believer that the Lord is with me wherever I go through these journeys. I do believe that we put more on our plates than he does. But it asks the question of, why is it that you have moved here? What is it that you want me to learn? What is it that you want me to take away from this season? And I think in that it helps to change the perspective to every day being an opportunity. One of my elders says every day is a good day. I thought that was a hard sell when I first heard it. But it says every day you wake up, you go around and make a choice. And I found my own ways of making every day a good day. But it's like, what do you want me to get out of this day?
And so how do you affirm that for yourself in the moment of looking back on your day and extracting the lessons?
I'm very mindful of where I see opportunities show up to see something. So I think just like, for example, I may be in a grocery store. No, I'll give you a realistic example. So I got a 1-year-old daughter, right? And my wife and I, we have our days where we give a nap time. And I go into the bathroom. I was about to take a shower, and I'm noticing that the bathroom still looks like my daughter runs things. Well, she does. It still looks, her stuff is all over the place. And I'm thinking to myself, what's up with my wife got this before I did? And I'm getting a little frustrated, but at the same time, I'm going to stop. Yeah, what is it that you want me to get in this moment? What do you want me to take away? And in those times, I'm more intentional about being like, what can I take away to make sure that I can add memory to this day, that I can add some depth to this day? And I think that's really important. And then I also set some benchmarks. I set some benchmarks on what a good day looks like. And I try to make them meaningful, but not over the top. I still want to be able to achieve these things so that it could be a good day. So for me, it's as simple as, did I feed my spirit? Did I do something physically healthy? Did I take my time for my mental health, spiritual health, emotional health? Did I take time for those today? And truth be told, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't. And I think the biggest thing is being graceful and giving myself some grace and saying, hey, okay, we didn't check off the boxes that we created, quote unquote, for ourselves on what a good day is, but it's okay. Tomorrow we'll restart. That's the biggest thing, one day at a time. What's up there? Tomorrow we'll eat that.
Yeah, one of the things for me was in recognizing the joy of the moment. Can I find the joy in the small moments? And for the longest time, you go to work and you go to school and you have all these things going on, and there's dance practice and there's soccer practice, and you're just constantly on the go, and you find yourself in this place of having these heightened feelings of anxiousness and frustration, and you're just trying to go through the motions and get the day done to get to, I don't know, maybe it's to get back to bed so you can start the day all over again. But it's actually taking that pause. I talk a lot about the power of the pause, and it's taking that breath and stepping back and observing that this moment right now is the only moment that I'm guaranteed. And right now, it might not be exactly where you want to be, but you're with your 1-year-old daughter, you're hanging out, you're having a good time, you're seeing for who she is. She's not going to be that age forever. It disappears so quickly. And so that pause gives you the opportunity to anchor in that feeling of joy that we often dismiss because we're trying to get to this other place, to get to this destination.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a phrase that I always share is understanding the difference between those seasons and those times. It's always your time. It's always going to be your time. You woke up, you're living, you're listening to this right now, you're re-listening, it is your time. Now, is it your season is what may need a little bit of reevaluating, right? Is this the season for the harvest? Is this the season for reaping? Is this the season for sowing? Be more mindful about the season that you're in while still being intentional with the time. It's always your time. One of my favorite rappers, Jay-Z, used to always say, I got now, I don't care who got next. And at that time, I believed them as, oh, he's got now, let's just move to the side. But no, we have now too, like this is our time. You were put into this specific time frame in history for a reason. It is always your time until it's not.
So how can we figure out what our purpose is, not only in this season, but for our lifetime? What does that look like?
So I think that's a layered approach. But the way I approach it is I think that everybody has a superpower. right? I think that everybody has a unique strength that they do that no one else does, quite the way that they do it, that contributes to their purpose in life and their impact in life. And I think understanding that superpower is what helps us to navigate through life and identify our purpose. Well, and when I say that superpower, I'm not talking about leaping buildings. I'm not talking about dodging bullets. Let's just get that out of the way. I'm talking about, for example, one of them may be maybe your power is resilience. Right? Maybe it's this disruptive curiosity where there's always a burning question inside of you, but that question allows you to create. It allows you to develop. It allows you to grow. It allows you to explore more. And oftentimes those superpowers are either misunderstood by others or overlooked by ourselves. It's like Superman picking up a car. It's like second nature to him. It takes Lois Lane to probably say, hey, you just noticed you picked up a car with your pinky. That's simple what you just did.
I actually really like that you mentioned it gives you the opportunity to develop. You'll find often people come to you and they'll say, I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s, and I don't feel like I ever fully self-actualized. And they might not use those words. They might
Yeah.
say, I feel immature in my process, or I feel
Yeah.
I'm a very young 50-year-old. Like I haven't done what everybody else has done. I haven't
Mhm.
met the expectations of what my peers have accomplished in their lifetime.
Yeah.
How do you help that person navigate that immature experience so that they can fully develop into who they were meant to be?
I think the first thing is to recognize that back to that the time is now. Why? This is your time. And I consider those what to be late bloomers. And oftentimes they feel late in their own mind, but they've arrived at the perfect time. And then it's about highlighting. We have to go through the highlight reel. Even the late bloomer, someone who has 40, 50, 30, they didn't arrive there yesterday. They arrived there 30 years ago, 40, 50. And oftentimes they miss so many highlights over their lives that can help them gain that traction that they need. Going back to that first question that you asked me, I can always remember the different milestones in life where I was able to use those and propel forward. For example, for me, my first passion is music. I was a hip hop artist, very good at it. But after years of development, and my heaviest weight was at 525 pounds. So when I first started my weight loss journey, I didn't realize it at first, but the same energy that I was applying to being a good artist became the same energy that I applied to this weight loss journey. It became the same energy that I used to overcome traumatic experiences like the loss of my mother and my sister within a 2-year span. So one of the things that I do when I talk to clients is I say, let's get into the weeds. Let's look at those highlight reels. I want to know what you've done because you didn't just stumble into 40 or 50. There's some expertise there in being able to highlight that superpower and what you use it along the way and how you can intentionally use it going forward.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting that we often dismiss all the accomplishments that we have in our lifetime,
Yeah.
and we don't take the time to sit with ourselves, to take that inventory, to
Yeah.
see just how far we've actually come
Yeah.
and all the challenges that you've been through. Some of the best moments in your life happened and you dismissed it. And it goes back to that feeling of joy. And this is what I call retroactive joy. You can actually, whether you're 30, 40, 50, I don't care if you're 80, you can go back in
Yeah.
time into that moment where you may have missed an experience and actually
Mhm.
anchor in that feeling of joy of walking across the stage to get your degree that you were just spacing out. You went through the motions, you ended up
Yeah.
on the other side, and you're just like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And you got to take that time to actually go back and give yourself that experience and take
Yeah.
back that joy.
You do. You do. And that's very intentional because there's always those moments baked in that you do that. And I think that a lot of times when people list their joy, I feel like oftentimes there's some happiness that they're looking for. And I think that happiness is more externally fueled versus the joy that's internal. And I do have to add in too, when we think about joy, it's usually a feeling that's is associated with being the next level above happiness. So not only are we happy, but we're like over happy, like we're overjoyed, like we're like through the roof about it. And oftentimes we don't feel that when we feel that connection to what we've lived through in our accomplishments, but just resting in them and taking that time. And I love that retroactive joy because you can go back and grab those moments. And oftentimes they feel brand new.
They
Yeah.
do. That is for
Yeah.
sure. Now, in the process of rebuilding, what gave you the hope that transformation was still possible?
My faith in it. If I had to be transparent, that is the roots of it. Because as I was born through the adversity, 20 years ago, time flies, 20 years ago, I was at my heaviest 525 pounds. Okay. A year into deciding that I wanted to make a change, right? My mother passed away. And before she passed away, she told me to read this scripture. It was Proverbs 3:5. Now, I know this scripture like the back of my hand. Now, I've heard it plenty of times since then, but it was Proverbs 3:5. And I said, Mom, what is that scripture? Just go ahead and tell me. I don't want to read. Just tell me what it is. She said, no, I need you to go and read it. And I went and read it, and it's just not your own understanding. Lean on God with all your understanding. And I said, okay, not sure what I'll need this for, right? And she passed away in less than a year. And I always remembered that scripture. It always stuck with me. I don't have the answers to why this is happening, but God does, and just want to lean on Him. Sister passes away less than 2 years later. Mother passed away 2006. Sister passed away before 2009, February of 2009. And I just didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what was happening, why this was happening to me. And to be honest with you, I was very upset. I was angry at God. And I think at some point along the journey, if we're being transparent with that walk, there probably are some angry moments. There's some frustrated moments. There's some sad moments. But I never lost my faith through that. I never lost faith that there was going to be a light at the end of this tunnel, even though I had no idea what that light looked like, how long did it take to get through it. That faith is what kept me going and grounded. And that faith is what allowed me to see some tangible answers and tangible outcomes and people that will help me navigate that storm.
So I want to share with you, before we hopped on this call today, I started reading Proverbs for September. And so Proverbs 3:5 was what I was reading before we hopped on this call.
Wow. Wow.
How
Always
interesting
working.
is that?
Always working that big
Well,
man. It was always.
The thing is, if that's not just, that's one of those little synchronicities. That's one of those little
Yeah,
signs that we're supposed to have this conversation today.
absolutely.
This is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, you often talk about reshaping inner narratives. How can journaling or reflection help someone rewrite the story that they tell themselves?
That is a good question. To rewrite the stories that we tell themselves. First of all, you need to write it down, but what is the story that you are telling yourself? I think that would probably be the first question. What is that story? Why are you telling it? And even more importantly, when did you start telling it? When did you start telling it? One thing that I've noticed that when we have these false narratives and stories that we paint in our lives, it's usually attached to a lie that's baked into our childhood, right? There's usually some type of defense mechanism or wall that we had to build or construct or navigate in order to get through some type of hurdle in that season. And it begins to develop that story of who we think we are or who others see us as versus who we truly are and who we truly want to become. And then, that right there is a homework within itself. So I'm going to pause right there. That's a homework assignment within itself because it's actually harder than painting a picture of who you want to be because nobody really wants to face who they actually are. It's some of those scars and secrets that come attached with the story of it.
You're not lying.
Whoa.
Those scars and secrets you will carry them for the rest of your life if you don't acknowledge that you have them and that you actually have the power to transmute the energy from them and to heal from those experiences. I always try to remind people that you have to look at those childhood experiences through the lens of the adult that you are today. So you have all this language today, all this therapy language and healing language that you get on the internet. And we have more than enough information to be able to look at those past experiences, but you didn't have it then. Then you only had a certain amount of knowledge and experience of the world, and it was your 4, 5, 6-year-old self, and you only had the words that you could associate back then with those experiences, and you never developed or looked back on those experiences as an adult. And so you find yourself repeating all these different patterns throughout your lifetime. that were caused by those, what may have seemed like benign experiences, because that's just the way life was. You hear Gen X say
Yeah.
it all the time. I'm a Gen Xer, by the way. It's yeah, this is what happened, and this is the way it was, and I grew up fine,
Yeah.
and now I'm almost 50, and it's no, actually, there were some challenges, there were some experiences,
Yeah.
there were things that proved to be difficult, and it impacted different stages of my life. And being able to go back and actually rename those experiences for what they really are actually gives you the time and opportunity to take your personal power back from those things. And so you become renewed in that process. You recognize that it's not too late for you, that there are so many beautiful and amazing things that are ahead of you, and you just haven't gotten there yet. But sometimes we got to go back a little bit and work with some of those things from the past so that you can propel yourself forward into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's painful. It's painful work. This is why it takes so long. It's that fun. But also in the midst of uncovering those things, that's when you get your power, right? You get your power from going and doing that work and going through those situations and realizing that this isn't necessarily a moment that I will want to erase from my life, or this isn't a moment that I will go back and redo a reverse. It was there for a reason, and that was actually helping me to get to the next season.
I was just watching a video before this, and it was from the movie Arrival, I think. And so it's alien movie. And so she asked her partner the question, if you could go back, if you could see your life from the beginning to the end, is there anything that you would go back and change? And what a difficult question that I've been thinking about that for the past hour. Because I'm not at the end yet, right? So I don't have that forethought. But when you look back at your past experiences and the challenges that you faced and the things that you've been through, after a certain amount of time and healing and acknowledgement and acceptance, right? You transmute the shame that can be associated with some of those experiences, and you find yourself on the other side of this place where now you can't be touched, right? Because you've already worked through it. So there's nothing there's nothing anybody could bring up that's gonna hurt you. It's like, already been through it, my man. So there's nothing that you can do to me that's going to hurt me. And so when I look back on those experiences, you find yourself in this new place again. You feel renewed and you feel like you have your power back. And there's just so many different things that you know now that you're actually capable of building in your life. And I think that stops a lot of people because they live in this place of fear and anxiety and shame, and they haven't broken free from that mental prison yet.
Yeah, mental prison. That's a good way of putting it.
It's what it feels like.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Now, for someone who can't see themselves as a writer, how can they still use journaling effectively?
I didn't see myself as a writer. And it's funny because I was an artist. I didn't. But when I switched to writing, there's a big difference. But I would say, don't look at it like writing. I would say more journaling. I think the same audience would say, I'm not a big journaler. Just write your thoughts down. And it doesn't have to be paragraphs. It doesn't have to be sentences. Write what comes to mind. And get out of your own way, because that'll be the biggest thing that stops you from writing it down. Even that thought of, I'm not a writer. You've written something down, even if it's your own name. So technically you're a writer. But it's about getting out of our own way. And I got a buddy of mine. We have these journals that we produce, and he has had his journal for about 6-7 months. And he said, I don't know what to write in this. He says, once I crack it open, then I'll know where to start, but I don't even know where to start. And he just so happened to have his first child a couple of months ago. And now he wants to use this journal to have thoughts and memories for his child. So if I had to connect that thought as well with knowing that it took him time and him knowing that he needed to write, right? He knows me. He knows he needs to write these things down. Sometimes it's also about finding the angle that makes you encouraged to write. And I think there's a few layers about that. Whether it's your experiences, whether it's your community, whether it's your culture, your religion, your work, what you're passionate about. Those are some of the key layers that I will focus on. Not all of them, just pick one. One of those layers, and what is something in that area that I either want to improve or change the narrative of my story for? Do I want to change the narrative of my work? Do I want to change the narrative of my spiritual relationship? Do I want to change the narrative of how I see myself physically? Which one of those layers is it that you would like to rewrite the story or improve the narrative on, and focus on that? And make sure it's one that excites you.
Yeah. I can tell you for me, I'll even show you.
Mm.
So for me, I got on
Uh-huh.
Amazon and I
Uh-huh.
started with a gratitude journal.
Ooh, love it.
Okay. The gratitude journal, it's a bunch of lines. There's really nothing specific in there. It just
Mhm.
says, I'm grateful multiple times, and then gives a weekly inspiration. And it's just quotes from random people. And so you find yourself in this place of, I'm thankful for air. Right.
Yes, yeah.
And so it becomes a struggle because you don't know what to write. You exhaust everything that you're grateful for, which is a great practice in gratitude itself.
Yeah.
Just looking around in your environment and the experiences that you're having. Can I access gratitude? So you very quickly exhaust a book like this
Yeah.
within 90 days. You're like, okay, I see what I'm grateful for. I can see it now. And then I found the Daily Stoic. And the Daily Stoic, 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And so you get the ancient philosopher or the Stoic, you get a little bit of what they wrote down. And then the author, Ryan Holiday, writes about the representation of whatever that was in present day. So now you get the wheels turning. You're thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
And it comes with a second book, which is the journal portion. And in the journal, you get morning and evening reflection. And so I just opened up to May 13th and it says, which bad habits am I fueling? So you can take this book and you've got the writings of the ancient philosopher and Ryan Holiday to reference.
Mhm.
And then you can go about your day and go through here and think, okay, I did a morning reflection. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to experience my day. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to continue to think about this. And then in the evening, before I go to bed, I'm going to write an evening reflection based off of everything that I read and the thoughts that I had throughout the day. So it provides you a little bit of structure for people that just don't have that structure. It's not in their mind that you find yourself saying, I don't know what to do.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great concept to even give those prompts. And I've learned there's two different types of people. Some people that love the guided approach, and some people that kind of got a good idea of what it is they want to put on paper and they just freestyle and they can go.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we do with we have our vision keepers, which are journals. We usually try to have different prompts that help them to not only develop that superpower, well, how do you turn that into a purpose-driven plan? But we spend a lot of time diving into the history of your strengths. Because like I say, we oftentimes overlook them, and there's different layers that your strength is developed through, right? It's developed through your family dynamic, your community, your spiritual relationship, religion, your work, and your past experiences. So diving into each one of those and how have you seen that power show up in that area? And it's not always good, not always. Resilience doesn't always work in our favor, right? Curiosity, I speak to a lot of youth. Disruptive curiosity does not favor well with children, especially in a school setting. But this is also where we see a lot of creativity driven out of them, right? I run into a lot of artists that struggle with perfectionism. And oftentimes that's from getting too much in their head and not wanting to produce that work. And if we go back sometime in that past, you can see some patterns of where that may have developed. So we spend a lot of time doing that self-work on the inside, like asking some questions that you probably wouldn't ask yourself. And then you have to be courageous enough to write down some of those answers that nobody's going to see except for you.
You always hope.
You always hope. You always hope.
It's interesting because what you're talking about here is to truly know yourself.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time looking outward, trying to find pieces of ourselves.
Sure.
We try to find it in other people. We try to find it in a job, in a situation or circumstances that I am whoever you think I am.
Yeah.
That's who I'm going to be to the world because
Yeah.
I want to be well liked and I want to have connection. And I learned that in order to have connection with other people, I have to show up in a certain way to get them to like me, and you become a people pleaser. And all of that, you're actually dismissing some of the most important parts and pieces of yourself.
Absolutely.
And then you find yourself down the road not knowing who you are, wondering, how did I get here? Why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And so I always ask people, who are you? Where are you going? What are you doing? And why are you doing it? And if you can answer those questions, you're going to find out really quickly who you are as a person, or at least be able to develop a framework that's going to help guide you through the rest of that process to figure it out.
Absolutely. And those questions may change over time. I think those are good questions to continue to ask yourself to make sure you're on the right path, or do you need to detour? Sometimes you may hang on to some of those answers for years where it's like, have I really thought about that, or have I gotten into my own way and just been regurgitating something that's doesn't reflect the growth and the direction that I'm trying to move into now?
Yeah, it goes back to that internal narrative, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you know when to detour?
Oh boy. Sometimes I desire to give an answer that separates spirituality from the facts of the matter.
Yeah.
But for me, for one, I can say it's self-awareness. And it's that also that relationship that I have with the Lord, that I can get an idea whether we're going in the right direction or not. For example, I'm a planner, I'm a strategist. I love to plan, I love to strategize, and I love to execute. But there were seasons in life where I was really doing a bang-up job of planning. Music was that time. If you named them in the time we were hot, they were hot, proud performing. From Rick Ross to Ludacris to D. Pharrell, Franchise Boys, you name them, 50, we perform with them. But
It's awesome.
there was a certain point, thank you, it was a certain point in time where we just couldn't get the traction that we wanted. Just couldn't get the traction. Things were happening, life situations. This is also around the same time my mother passed away. And I just noticed, like, every time I apply this plan, things don't necessarily come out the way that I wanted to. And in that season, I realized I was creating plans and I wasn't inviting God into it, right? I'm saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to run it past you. Right? And then it became, okay, here's the plans that I want to create. And then I thought that I was saying, okay, God, here's the plans that I have, not waiting for any confirmation, not spending any quiet time, any prayer time, reflection, any of that, just going ahead and moving forward. But it wasn't until years later when my father, he shared, it was Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all these things should be added unto you. But the key ingredient in that is seek the kingdom of God first. Don't seek your endeavors first. Don't seek what you want to do. Seek him first. So every time I plan and strategize, I invite God in first. I invite him first before I pick up any paper or pen to do any planning and strategize. And I invite him in and say, what do you want me to do? How do you want me to move? And I take some quiet time there. And I've come to a point where if it doesn't go the way that I had planned or the way that I thought it was going to go, then I'm also at a peaceful place with that, knowing that whatever will be is better than whatever I just concocted. And I think that takes some work because it's devastating to put your time, your effort into something and not go your way. And then it's even more heartbreaking when you don't understand why it's not going your way. It's even more
It's
frustrating.
real.
Yeah. So I'm going to trust you with all of this. And if you knock over my sandcastle, that's fine. I know you got a better castle for me coming. But what I will say to those who may not be in tune with the Lord and may have different spiritual beliefs, there is a common denominator, and it's faith, right? Now, what that faith may look like from just the simplest level is having faith in a process that you have never endured before. If you're looking to step out into something new, you're looking to step out into whatever that transformation is that you're trying to see, even if there is no spiritual connection there has to be some level of faith that I'm stepping out into something that I've never done before, and I'm going to trust this process. It's the same thing that we see from someone who may be recovering from an addiction, right? They have been so used to struggling with that addiction that anything other than that is out of the norm. So in order to change those habits, you still have to step out on faith that this process that someone is telling me to do is better than the one that I've been doing. Even though I haven't done it, I've never seen it, I'm still going to have some faith in this process that's better than the one that I'm doing.
I have so many questions. No, so it's interesting how these life pivots happen. You think you're on the right path, you're moving in a particular direction, and then you are detoured in a way that it shakes the foundation of
Yeah.
everything that you've been doing.
Yeah.
And then you reorient yourself and you start doing something else,
Yeah.
right? Because that's a roadblock, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm not going to keep beating down that door because, that was an ending. So now you transition and you start doing something else.
Mhm.
And you create this forward momentum and
Yeah.
it starts to build and it starts to grow. And then all of a sudden, there's another roadblock. And at what point do you find yourself in that place where you can make the determination to say, I should keep going because there was a pivot, then there was the new thing. Now you're doing the new thing, but you hit a roadblock and the roadblock's been going for 9 months.
Yeah.
So it's not the momentum stalled out, but you've created something new in that process. So is that something that was good for a season and now it's time to reorient again and to make a different pivot? Because there's always that thought process of you can always go back, right?
Sure.
And so we look to the familiar and we find ourselves in that place of this roadblock is saying, maybe this isn't where I should be going, but you have all these skills and abilities and education, and I could go back. And then that starts to feel a little bit good because it's in the past, it was safe, it was comfortable, it gave you some
Yeah.
stability in your life. And this new thing is still unstable, but at the same time you're like, maybe it just hasn't baked long enough. It just needs
Yeah.
more time in the oven.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so how do you make that determination? I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions is what is it that you're pursuing? If it's business, I'm not sure if 9 months is long enough. I don't think depending on what it is, 9 months might not be long enough in general. But it depends. It truly depends. But one thing that I will say is who is who is the goal serving? Who is the goal serving? Is the goal simply serving you, or does the goal serve others? So one of the things that I also noticed along that journey was a lot of the goals that I had was serving myself. They were self-serving. And I think a lot of times we use our power to serve ourselves. And I think there are seasons when we must get ourselves together and there are seasons when we must focus on ourselves. But I do not think that our entire lives should be dedicated to getting ourselves together, focusing on ourselves. I think that we are put here for a purpose. And I think that impacts our community. That community can be the family that's inside of our homes, family we grew up with. It can be 10, 20, hundreds, or thousands, depending on the calling that you have. But if you can identify that purpose that you're going after and do some transparency with yourself, who does this goal serve? If you find it serving yourself more than you're serving others, and you're finding yourself hitting that roadblock consistently, we may need to pivot. And that doesn't mean that you go a totally different direction. Maybe you look at it from another lens of how can this have a larger impact on other more than just myself. I even think about the example of business. And oftentimes, I'll give an example. I had a meeting with a buddy of mine at a Panera. And the waitress that came to help us, she didn't bring us our food, anything, just asked us if we needed napkins or something. It's very simple. But I said, this employee is here for a specific reason. Right? She can pay her bills here. She can take care of whatever her expenses are, whatever they may be. She's working here for a specific reason. This job is helping her get to another level. So someone who started Panera decided we not only want to start this business so that we can make the coffee or bread for others, we also want to make this business so that we can put others in a position where they can make better moves to themselves. And I think that's a true way to look at a business. It's like, this isn't just for your own gratification. This isn't just so you can generate money. No, your business is something that also can put others into a position that can better their lives. And I not to get off subject, but I do think that is one of the things that we see a decline in our current. When we see so many smaller businesses starting, that is one thing that we will probably see the impact of next 10, 20, 30 years of the decline of big businesses because they do support a lot of families. So just that perspective of how to look at our goals that we're going after.
Yeah, I think you touched on something really important there, which is the intention with which you go into a goal, your purpose behind doing the things that you're doing. And is it self-serving or service to self or service to others? And if you lead with service to others, it's one hand washes the other. You end up
Yeah.
getting that service to self as well in that process. But people will always feel, and so we can relate this to business, right? So if your intentions aren't in integrity with where you actually want to go and you're not doing the things that you know that you should be doing, people are going to feel that off of you, and it's
Yeah.
actually going to repel the clients and the people that you
Yeah.
want to have patronizing your business. So you want to
Yeah.
make sure that whatever you're doing it with the right intention, because people are going to feel that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you've turned hardship into momentum. What's one mindset shift that helps people move from surviving to creating purpose?
One of the biggest things that helps people from thriving to purpose,
From surviving to creating purpose.
surviving to creating purpose. I think it's a combination. Surviving to creating purpose. There's a certain, there's a mentality that comes with survival mode. And it's like being in water and you're simply shredding. Well, I think intentionality helps you to understand why you're in the water that you're in and can you navigate it. Self-awareness helps that as well because sometimes we need to remove ourselves from the deep end in order to move more effectively. But survival mode, I could write a book on survival mode. I think it's a very challenging space, but I'm thinking of what was the biggest light bulb that helped to switch that. You know what? I think I'll say this. So there was a book that I read, changed my life. It was called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. A lot of people know Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich, right? But this book was one that the family put out after he had passed away. A lot of controversy they said around the book, so they didn't want him to be alive and they did it today. But one of the things that he mentioned in there was this other self, this energy that we have inside of us that when the going gets tough, we can call upon it, right? Bills due, mortgages past due, not sure what's going to come from, you're going to dig deep. Just lost a job, need to find another job, you're going to dig deep. Just got out of a bad relationship, you're trying to overcome that, you're going to dig deep into that other self. And for me, I had to think about all of the times where I used this other self, right? I think about my weight loss, the family traumas. And the light bulb moment was, what if we use that for what we wanted to achieve versus what was needed to achieve? Okay. And for me, that was like one of the biggest light bulbs. It was like that retroactive joy, right? It was where I went back and I noticed all of these moments where I had tapped into this other self where I said, okay, I needed to pull myself up by the bootstraps and get it done, right? But I was doing that to survive. I was doing that for things that I needed to overcome. But I never thought to apply it to what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to have other people feel this feeling of freedom that I have felt. This feeling of, oh, wow, I can actually overcome adversity and I can apply this to anything. Not everything, it's not enough time. But I can apply this. So I think it's that going back to what we've been connecting is understanding your history, understanding those strengths. But what if you apply that on what you wanted to achieve versus what you need to achieve? The average person goes through life on autopilot, but there's still power that's exerted in autopilot, right? We think about our car. If I'm on a freeway, I can't use cruise control if I don't have gas in the car, right? So it's still running off of something, but never is that switch like, okay, I don't have to use this for autopilot. I can put this in the manual. But it takes some time to get to that mentality, and it takes some work to get to that mentality, which I say take it one day at a time. Take it one day at a time. That's the most valuable piece, and it's so simple, yet so overlooked as to take it one day at a time. Trying to handle multiple days at a time is what gets the majority of us into trouble, especially when we're trying to do something new or taking the path, taking it one day at a time.
You find yourself stuck in a moment very quickly in that place of having those heightened feelings of anxiousness, and you get absolutely nothing done. You need to stay in the moment and be present as much as possible. instead of living in the future that you have absolutely no control over. Now,
I
I
lived
will.
there for years.
Yeah.
For years. I think,
Years.
yeah, after my mother and sister passed away, there were years. And I think also one of the things that I'll share is seasons come and go. We know this. And oftentimes when we're stuck in a bad season, we think it's our home. It's just a rental. You don't have to stay there. And nobody ever told me that when I was in my seasons. And people will see you going through a rough time and they'll say, you know what? I could understand why you're having that outcome. I could understand why you're lashing out that way. I can understand why you're reacting that way. If I will do that, I probably would do the same thing. But rarely will someone tell you, yeah, I understand, but you don't have to stay there. You don't have to live in that space for the rest of your life. Do what you have to do there. Take your time, but you don't have to stay in that season.
I really like that phrase. It's just a rental.
It's just a rental. It's not your home. It's just a rental.
The other thing that I would add to that is the law of subtraction. So when we're in the places where we struggle the most, it's really hard to bring in or manifest the things that you truly desire because you're not in the right headspace. And one of the things that you can do that you are in control of is your physical space, your environment. So you can look at things like your vehicle or your apartment, your closets, and you can start getting rid of the things that you no longer need. And you start asking yourself, is what I'm doing right now helpful or unhelpful? And that's another place where you can grab the journal and start taking an inventory of your life. And again, goes back to how we started. How do you wake up in the morning? What do you do during the day? What are you doing in the afternoon? What does your day look like? Actually write all of those things down and get a really good control or idea of where you're going, what you're doing, and the why behind why you're doing it. And then ask yourself, is this helpful or unhelpful? Get 2 columns. And if it's unhelpful, then you really have to take the idea of that and start purging the things that are unhelpful to you in the moment.
Yeah, that's still.
Like watching TikTok or television.
Your scrolling time, the circles.
Maybe limit that.
Yeah. It might even be subtracting people.
Yeah.
Even in that midst of that time when I read that life-changing book, I had just got out of a bad relationship. And if I was still in that relationship, I would have never read that book. That was a subtraction. I didn't note it in that moment, but that subtraction allowed an extra time for peace, quiet time, and reading. And that quiet time is so important because you live in such a noisy world where we don't really take as much time for quiet time. And in quiet time, you can probably hear what's going on outside before you hit it inside, the humming of the power of your lights going through. But having that quiet time is so helpful to being able to go back and find those memories, going back to reset after you're frustrated. It's so important to take that time to be, okay, we're going to have some quiet time. And it can start as simple as 5 minutes a day. It doesn't mean you're going to sit there for 30 minutes to an hour in quiet time. So it's like it's simpler. Maybe 5 minutes, 2 minutes to 5 is tea time. And work your way up.
Yeah, for some people, that 5 minutes can be pretty dark.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Everyone's attention spans have been annihilated.
Absolutely.
Since we talked about that 5 or 10 minutes, what's something that people can do today to work on themselves? And what's the best way to use those 5 or 10 minutes?
So I would say with the 5 to 10 minutes, I would say start with 5 versus 10. Just keep it simple, work your way up. And I believe meditation is very helpful. One of the things with meditation, I don't think you need to buff anything for it, but one of the things is to focus on your breathing, right? Focus on the rhythm of your breathing. You should be able to hear yourself breathe in and out. And just focus on that. Try to clear out the thoughts. Whenever you hear a thought come to your mind, I'm very illustrated, and so I envision myself plucking that idea out and throwing it out to the side, right? Plucking it out and throwing it to the side. So in that 5 minutes, if it's new to you, that's all you're going to be doing is plucking ideas out and noises. What are we going to do after this 5 minutes is over? Is that a bird outside? What are we cooking? Is that a smell? There's so many random thoughts that are going to come to mind, but starting at that 5 minutes is saying, okay, I'm going to reset, take that thought away. Reset, take that thought away. Until you get to that actual place of silence, it just resting there. I don't think there's a need to have any thoughts. I think that comes later, because I think that's also a place where I have my most encounters with God is in that quiet time. But it doesn't start off most often where I'm in quiet time, like, okay, Lord, what are we talking about today? No, it starts with us just truly quiet time, just getting back to zero, getting those thoughts out, picking them out. And this is an extra challenge if you want it. But when I first started, if I felt like thoughts were crowding my space, I would reset my thought. I would reset my time. Now, if you got things to do, then that might not be the best option. But sometimes resetting, because you may get to the end of that 5 minutes and you haven't had any quiet time. But resetting, okay, I'm going to add an extra minute on here. I'm going to add extra 2 minutes on here. Especially if I didn't put airplane mode on my phone, and now your phone may be a distraction too. But how can you get that quiet time to start small? And then maybe even set a goal to maybe cleanse it after a couple of weeks a month.
And do you use guided meditations or music or just silence?
I have in the past. Most recently, I've just been most silent. I do love there are the alpha waves, delta waves. There's a certain ones that I love the alpha waves for sure. Sometimes I'll use water, like waves of water, but most of the time it's complete silence. But I do love the alpha waves. It's something about it that's very peaceful, very tranquil, and it still allows me to be at a state of peace and relaxation as I'm clearing my head.
Yeah, I discovered for sleeping bilateral music, and it feels like your brain is being flossed because it goes from ear to ear. But man, you find yourself in this place where it's like after a couple minutes and you can feel your eyes doing the side to side movement.
Yeah.
You're just like, and I'm good, I'm out. That's exactly what I needed.
I can try that.
But for everybody else that's listening, you can also find binaural beats on YouTube, as well as EMDR music on Spotify.
Yeah.
And you can use those for your meditations, as well as if you have trouble sleeping, which I was one of those people who was a chronic overthinker and then discovered that you can do sleep meditations, and it really does make a big impact.
Did you find that helpful with the overthinking before bed?
Yeah, I had some other things going on in the background. I used to work crime scene, and so I found that as a way to get myself to sleep faster. And now within 5 minutes, I'm asleep.
Yeah. My world, my dad used to do the same way. He was a detective.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All
Where at?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's interesting is we're having this conversation. I'll edit this portion out, but
Sure.
I had this thought of I've created all of this and I've built all of this and I've done it in 3 years and 700,000 followers across all platforms. And those are vanity metrics. It doesn't matter, but it's an establishment that, yeah, there's something here. And so do you keep going with it? And so that 9 months was me, by the way.
Yeah.
The past 9 months
That's
have
good.
been a massive struggle with business,
Yeah.
with clients and stuff like that. But I have this opportunity that I can go back to law enforcement, and it's maybe I should take the time off, and then I've already built all this. It's not going to go away. But once I go back, you can't post anymore. So that's that pivot.
And that's an interesting conundrum because both of those are survey.
Yes. But it goes back to the service to self or service to others. And I get all the testimonials and comments from people almost on a daily basis of, you changed my life, you've impacted my life, you've changed my perception, you improved my marriage, you saved my marriage, all the way to I've saved people's lives. And I didn't save your life, you did that, but you chose to listen and pay attention and then implementing your life. So of course that's going to make an impact. And you did that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I got bills to pay, man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what do? Do you put this to bed for a while and then come back to it down the road, or what?
I don't know. I say push through. I also say to pray on it and to stay in there, because God doesn't always answer that prayer in the time that we want him to, but he always answers it at perfect time.
So I hear that and I tell myself that over and over again, but I've hit the breaking point now that financially something needs to happen. But with my education level and experience, I can go back to a big boy job and do that, but then I'm no longer helping people in the way that I really enjoy. And that is self-serving. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, you still got to pay bills at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now, you created the Superpower Planner. How does it help people stay grounded and intentional in their everyday lives?
Yeah. So what it really does is help them to break down their goals layer by layer, not just level by level. So when I first started working with clients, I would be helping them to achieve their goals. Most were either related to overcoming a traumatic event, weight loss, transformation, developing a business. And I noticed that, for one, people didn't like the plan. It was not fun. It was not something that was desirable to them. But oftentimes I also noticed that they were overwhelming themselves. Okay. Someone who may have wanted to switch their job and say, okay, I want to switch my job, that might not have been the actual real goal that they wanted. They might have wanted to switch their job because they weren't really feeling that good about themselves and their health, right? And really their physical health. So by doing some of that work and saying, okay, that's the actual real goal. So let's focus on that. So we break down this goals into different sections: spiritual, mental, financial, career, and passion, and family. One of those we can improve one at a time. I always recommend, unless you've been doing this like season and you already got a routine going, do not try to take on all of them at the same time. It's like eating an elephant at once. But what layer can we improve upon one at a time? And how do we break that down into something that we can do monthly, weekly, and daily? And really, it helps them to develop that system. The system is not a sexy word. Nobody likes it, but it's really just your habits being done consistently. We just have to just demystify what it is. It's just, what are the habits that you need to do on a daily basis that are going to get you to this weekly outcome? And you can make it expanded. What are those weekly habits that are going to have to be done that are going to get you to this monthly outcome? And the same thing for our annual. Well, I'll also say, how can we make a planner that's just as important as this phone that people have attached? Because people will leave home without their plan for the day, but they won't leave home without their planner.
Yes.
So we also connected technology into the planner too. So all of them have wireless capabilities. You can charge your phone with them, built-in chargers, Bluetooth. Some have lights built in, different tech features to help them stay connected while also focusing on writing it down.
That's awesome.
That's the biggest piece. You still need to write it down. There's so much data that supports writing things down and helping with achieving those goals versus letting life happen. There's just so much data that supports that. We're not getting any smarter with our phones. We're not getting any smarter with AI. We're not getting any smarter with the technological advances that we see around us. But writing has been around for thousands of years. We would not be where we are if someone didn't first write a code. We wouldn't be where we'd be if someone didn't write the scriptures down. If Martin Luther King never wrote down his dream. There's so many examples littered in history where we wouldn't be where we'd be if someone didn't first write it down. So your next level of success is going to require you to write it down as well.
And I think we're going to make a shift back to things that are more tangible that you can put in your hands, right? Instead of all the swiping and everything. People are going to want what's real once again, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get back there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, leaders and high performers often carry invisible weight. What's one strategy they can use to stay centered under pressure?
I would say more alignment. I think the center is always going to be elusive. This balance thing is like chasing a woolly mammoth. I don't think we're ever going to be balanced with an ED on the end, but I think being in alignment. And that's where we break down and expose into those different sections. Most leaders that I work with struggle with burnout. They're taking on too much. They're not reaching out for help. They're not asking for help. And everything is just on one plate. Right. So how can we establish swim lanes out of your leadership? Because most times leaders are wearing multiple hats. Most of the time, maybe a leader in your home, a leader at work. A leader is oftentimes a leader in multiple places. If somebody sees you're going in a good direction and you got some good leadership skills, oftentimes they want to tell you for some assistance. So you're spread thin. But how can we make sure that we're establishing a healthy alignment, right? Because you can't lead if you're sick. You can't lead if you're dead, to put it at the core. So how do we make sure that physical vessel is healthy? How do we make sure that our emotions are healthy emotional responses? Mental responses, because our mental health is different from our emotional health. We speak a lot about all of the mental language that's being used, and I think it's so helpful because growing up we didn't have this. But then we also have to be cognizant that there is a difference between mental health and our emotional health, separating them and making sure that they're both taken care of. Because where I see a lot of leaders get bogged down is oftentimes they'll overwork out of the sense of something that's not being dealt with behind closed doors. Right. So I'm just going to put that into this work. While the work gets done and even money can be generated, there's still this unhealthy balance because we didn't really address the emotions that are attached to why you're working so hard or why you're so driven. So how can we place those into a better position? But I think it's really about making sure that each layer is healthy as a leader.
No, it's great. As you're speaking, I'm just thinking, yeah, there's probably a lot of fear associated with the experience of being a leader, right? You're in
Yeah.
this place of, I've worked so hard to get to this place. And what I'm most afraid of is that it's going to be taken away. So if I stop doing all of the things that I'm doing, or even just a portion of
Yeah.
them, and I take a step back, then it's not going to get done. And then all this is going to fall apart and it's just, you catastrophize real quick. And it's
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But what people always want most is that leader, right? And I think if it's a job setting, the best leader can be replaced tomorrow. Worst case scenario, something happens to them. The work is not going to evaporate. The work of the leader does not evaporate. Somebody has to pick it up and someone carries it all. Will they do it as efficiently? Will it take more than one person to get it done? More than likely, absolutely. But it's going to get done. A family dynamic. Losing a matriarch and losing a leader in that family, it's going to hurt. Will life go on? It will. Will there be a large piece missing? Absolutely there is. So that's why I say the most thing that they want is a leader. And if you're not healthy, if you're not doing what you need to do to make sure that you can be there and to put your best foot forward, then you're doing yourself and those that you serve a disservice. So it's about making sure you're healthy. And a lot of times that fear and anxiety bleeds over to the people that are following, whether it's in your responses, the way that you're leading, it ultimately bleeds over to people calling it so. So how can you patch you up and make sure that you're not bleeding all over those that you've been called to serve and lead?
that is so good. So how do you stop yourself from bleeding all over the people that are beneath you?
So I will give this is where we talk about swim lanes. I'm a firm advocate in therapy, and that is where you truly stop the bleeding. You stop the bleeding with therapy and doctors. You go to the doctor, you don't see a physical therapist healing the wound or putting in the stitches. The physical therapist is there after the doctor has done his work. So I always recommend people to go to those outlets, use a therapist. Everybody has some level of trauma that they're dealing with, but the therapists and those medical physicians is where they stop the bleeding. We get you back on the road and do the physical therapy. This is where my word, that's what we call the physical therapy. We're not stopping the bleeding. That's for the physician. They do that. They bring you back out and patch you up and help you get to where you're going to get to. But I think that is very important because God never made a house that he made a tree, right? So a lot of people say, oh, what am I going to do with a therapist? God made it possible for that career to exist, that field to exist, and those people to go through their experiences and knowledge in order to be able to help others. So it's just getting out of that stigma and really getting out of your own way and saying, oh, hey, I could use some extra help. And maybe it looks like a mentor. But in most cases, I think it does look like therapy. But sometimes it can be a mentor or coached, depending on the level of what you're trying to do and transform.
Yeah. And everything keeps going back to the way that we started, right? It's, you have to learn to know yourself. There's so many things that you can mitigate, problems in your life, challenges that you're going to face, issues that you're going to come across when you know and trust yourself. But you have to learn to do each of those things. And it takes time, it takes work, it takes effort. And you have to be willing to put that effort into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in your TEDx talk, you emphasize creativity is a tool for everyone. How does creativity play a role in healing and growth?
I think that goes back to the story. What is the story that we're telling ourselves? Because I think that we all have creativity within us. It's one of the things that I don't even label as a superpower. I used to say creativity is a superpower, but it's not a superpower. It's something that everybody has. Everybody wakes up and they create. We have 24 hours, and in that 24 hours, you're creative with it. So I really think it's about understanding the story, where you've come from. And the next piece of that is, where is it that you want to go? What does that next chapter look like for you? And I think that's where we can get creative. I think that's where we use our creativity to lean on that. It's a little bit of give and take in it too, because I think it depends. Once again, going back to my spirituality, I know where my creativity comes from, right? I'm made in the image of a creator. So ultimately, I'm also making sure that I include the grand creator into the space in which I create. But I think at the base level, it's about understanding we're going to create, whether you're procrastinating, scrolling, watching TV, you're creating time to be on TikTok, right? And you're also creating some type of idea of what it is that you want to watch on TikTok. TikTok, the algorithm, it's good, but it's still based upon what it is that you want to look for, right? We think about all these algorithms and how they feed us the data that we want to see. It's still what you want to see. You're creating that, right? So it's being intentional about, okay, what do I want to create? Do I want to create a better life for myself? Like, I probably lost about 1,000 pounds in my life. My weight is something that I have always struggled with. Okay. And as I got married, gained a little bit more, lost some more. As the pandemic hit, we gained a little bit more, lost a little bit more. Baby came, put the gym in the house, right? Baby came because every guy that I know has always gotten bigger with me. So I said, we're going to put this gym in, lost, and then we gained a little bit more. And I think over the last 6 months, I was telling my wife, I said, you know what? I don't think that I need big sir anymore. I've been big my entire life. My family's big. Even after losing over 250 pounds, right? There's still this mentality in the back of my mind. We still need a slice of big sir. We still need big sir around. And the change where that creativity had to show itself again was just like, does your daughter need big sir? Because I think she needs sir here as long as she can be here from a healthy perspective. Does your daughter need big sir when it's time for you to maybe take a walk, or if you want to do something that's extracurricular? That's one of the most important reasons why I'm still so conscious about my health. But it's no, we don't need big sir anymore. Like that chapter has changed. So I don't know. I haven't been under 200 pounds since I was a child, but I know that's where we're headed. And we're creating what it takes to get there. Do we know what the outcome looks like? No. I also know that there's different mentalities and different disciplines that come with that were different from 250 pounds. There's different levels of discipline and different things that must be created and put into place in order to get there. So it comes back to that faith, right? I'm having faith in a new version of myself that I know is the best for my family. And have I seen that version of myself? No, but I'm going to walk courageously because I know that we've seen the unknown before and we've been able to navigate it. So that creativity, I think, is something that it can be challenging, but it should be something that's enjoyable. It should be something that's fun because there's only one you. There'll never be another you to come. And what type of life do you want to create for this unique person that has been given this unique space and time to operate? And with that, it really can be a fun time. It should be. Like, what do I want to create? But you also have to tap from that survival mode, because if we're still in survival mode, I'm just thinking about how can I survive, not what can I create? How can I just make it to the next step?
Yeah, what an interesting conversation to have with yourself, and to repair and restore your internal narrative, to get to a place where you can look at a past version of yourself and say, thank you, but I've got it from here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And allow that new version of you to truly be who you know that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like what you said when being a Gen Xer, right? Now, I'm right behind you. I'm
Well, a younger Gen.
But there's certain things that you noticed along the way, whereas maybe there could have been something in there, right? That wasn't just a part of that time. And it's the same thing for who we were, right? It was good for a season. It was good for a time. It was good for a stretch, era, decades. But is it going to be the most beneficial for the next season of where you're going into? And that is a very tough question to ask yourself. And there's some homework. You've given some homework. I have, but one of the good ones is making those columns. What can you subtract? What cannot? Because I guarantee you, if you make a subtraction list and what can stay, at the end of that subtraction list, you're probably going to have a whole new person. There's a radical transformation in there. If you're willing to truly highlight the things in life that can be subtracted that aren't being as fruitful or valuable to your development, you're going to see a radical transformation.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I always put this disclaimer out there for people. I'm not big on get rid of everybody in your life.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that. You can, and sometimes that's what needs to be done. But take an inventory of your closest relationships and just ask yourself, should I be spending more or less time with a particular person or group of people? And then start to limit that time. So I don't think you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Absolutely.
You can still maintain some of your relationships you've had for 20 years. But at the end of the day, it's up to you on whether that is moving you further away from your goal or closer to it.
Yeah. Because those relationships, they're important.
They are.
And I think if you get to a point where you have to replace everybody in your circle, you probably missed the self-examination of that. You probably missed
on TikTok and you'll hear all about it. Just get rid of them. No. Okay, but then you're not going to have anybody and nobody's going to want to be around you.
Absolutely.
Just so you know. Sir, I can't thank you enough for sharing your time with us today. Was there a question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I think you nailed it. But I will say that for people who may be curious about that superpower and the strength, I actually just wrapped up a book on it. And it should be releasing the end of the year, top of 2026. Awesome. Get more about that superpower, how to develop it, strengthen it, and harness it.
Tell everybody how to reach you and connect with you.
Absolutely. You can find out more at qualityservice.com. Quality Service is spelled SIRVICE. And you can tell I'm right behind the Gen X's because I went straight to the website. But all of the tags are the same on Instagram, TikTok is Quality Service spelled SIRVICE.
Awesome. And of course, all those links will be in the show notes, guys, so don't miss out on that. Sir, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.